The type of competition is heating up in games, and it's rooted in this. You have never owned your games on Steam. Never. What's changed, though, is how Valve tells you about that, and a law that is compelling them to do so. And most of us kind of knew this stuff, we just didn't feel it. Steam had become the foundation of PC gaming, right? It's the place that's got a killer refund policy, it's got reviews that are actually useful to us, a company that's done amazing things like Proton with Linux gaming, like Steam Deck, which has juiced up the handheld arms race. That's been amazing for gaming. So much good has happened that the uncomfortable knowledge of our lack of ownership just went under the rug. Helped by Gaben talking about the kill switch, that if Steam is to die, they have a button and they can kill the DRM along with it. Things recently are changing though. There are the mass legal cases that we've covered, there are the legal probes into large market share stores all over the place, and all these things kind of risk Valve. Valve are having to change here and there. And one thing is for sure with today's story, GOG could not have found better free marketing. Let's get into it. So here's the tweet. GOG, a subsidiary of CD Projekt, chimed in on a trend. They said this: "Since checkout banners are trending, we're thinking of putting one up ourselves. Thoughts on this one?" Which is, of course, a little bit cheeky because it's enabled by contrast. You see, as of recently, when you go to buy a game on Steam, you'll see this disclaimer at checkout. It reads, "A purchase of a digital product grants a license for the product on Steam. For full terms, please see the Steam subscriber agreement." Yeah, Valve's wording here is kind of fun. It affirms what you do get, a license for a game on Steam, but it leaves the implication that you don't actually own the game very much to you, and if you decide to click through and read the subscriber agreement. GOG's, though, simply states, "A purchase of a digital product on GOG grants you its offline installers, which cannot be taken away from you." Which, is fairly different. If you get banned from Steam, you lose everything. If you get banned from GOG, well, good news. The software is yours. You bought it from the store. It's on your computer. There's nothing they can do. But here's the twist. There's legal stuff that's happened, and Steam's new disclaimer may not even be legally compliant, which is hardly a surprise given we're also finding that parts of the Steam subscriber agreement are not legally enforceable. So, let's get into this. We're going to travel a bit. Surf, sun, dangerously drinkables, infidels, and of course lots of needles. We're in California, and with a swipe of his left hand, Gavin Newsom signed an amendment into law recently. It's a fun one. It's one designed to broaden the definition of misleading advertisement legislation. Now, I'll be real, this sounds like gobbledygook, but we gotta read through it first. "Prohibit a seller of a digital good from advertising or offering for sale a digital good as defined to a purchaser with the terms buy, purchase, or any other term which a reasonable person would understand to confer an unrestricted ownership interest in the digital good." That little bit at the end, of course, matters a lot, and to put that simply, it just says that words like buy and purchase or similar words that to a reasonable person usually mean you actually own something, well, that they have actually got to mean that you own something. This law basically says that if those words are used, or similar words which a normal person would expect to mean I own this thing, well, if those are used, then it has to be for the unrestricted ownership interest in a digital good. Unrestricted is, of course, a very important word there, and obviously, Valve, Steam, well, you're not going to be getting unrestricted, are you? The point is you have to own it, and that means, per this law, the digital storefront language has got to be clear. Now, this is good news, right? This is a win, but it also is something that's a little bit complicated, and yes, Steam's new language might still violate this. Before we break that down, a quick thing, because we actually do more here than just this show. Over at Bellular.games, our members actually get things, like, say, our videos ad-free, all of our research reports, and a fresh edition of Loading Screen every day, and with that, we sift through all the big stories, all the upcoming games, all the things that you need to know, the best articles and bits of journalism out there, and we keep you in the loop. It is the best way to support our team, and you can check it out below with a free trial today. With that said then, let's talk about what changed. You know, the funny thing is, if I was to do a shitpost, I could almost say that this is all Ubisoft's fault, because the thing that kicked off the stop killing games, that really just bursted that movement into the public consciousness was, well, the crew being taken offline. The point, though, is stop killing games is a consumer movement, and the idea is that if a game can be removed from your library, or it can be turned off in a way that it just means the product can't be used, then it basically is a violation. Now, this all sparked debate, and one of the people in that debate was Pirate Software, who is pro-consumer rights, but is connected to the dev side. He took the position on it that essentially Well-meaning, but we should be cautious. And the essence of his core point is good. I mean, we all understand the idea that often regulations, while well-meaning, can have unintended consequences. And actually, when done wrong, regulations, even if they're meant to aid competition, can actually have the opposite effect. They can reduce competition. And that's because an incumbent company with lots of money, well, they will have the resources to stay compliant with the new regulation. If the new regulation means, though, that you've got to do a bunch of extra work to stay compliant, then startups, well, they will be relatively punished. That's actually why in so many cases you can see big companies even lobbying for regulation, because even if it'll hurt them, they think it'll hurt their competitors more. And so some of the point here is that if we do really big regulations that are crafted by people who don't really understand the thing that they're regulating, which I think could be the case for video games, well, it's just going to take a very long time. It may end up hurting you, who really knows. What can be done quite quickly, and is being done right now though, is, I think, pragmatic. It is simply informing people. That's what Steam have to do. That's what digital storefronts have to do. They have to inform people about what they're actually buying, what it means. That's good, it's low cost, and it minimizes unintended consequences. It's essentially an example of enforced transparency, and we've just seen that be good for competition with GOG. Okay, so one of the normal ways to compete with another company is on price, but Steam have got pricing rules. Now, in case you're out of the loop in that one, per emails that were made public through discovery in a court case, Valve enforces its pricing rules, its pricing parity rules, not just on Steam keys that are sold elsewhere, but on game prices in general, even if it is not a Steam key. At least that's what those emails very much do suggest. Now, that's a problem if you're GOG, because it basically means you cannot compete with Steam by offering a lower price. Maybe you as GOG could say, here's the deal, game developer, we're going to have a lower store fee, we'll pass some of that on to the customer, and we'll all be more competitive. Well, Valve's rules kill that. But price is only one way to be competitive. There are others. Value is one of those things. On GOG, if you buy a game at the same price as it is in Steam, you could very much argue that's of a better value because you have, per that law, unrestricted ownership interest. You just have a zip file with the game installer on it. You don't need to phone home. You can play it locally. There is zero DRM. If you buy that same thing in Steam, you're obviously not buying the game because you need Valve DRM to run it. And yes, there is offline, but offline involves hoops and other things that basically mean that it still is just a game license. And so this is good, even for Steam users. You know, the internet's got this weird habit of making everything a battle between people, of user groups fighting user groups, as if criticizing Steam is somehow criticizing Steam users. It's not. I'm a Steam user. I will generally buy games on Steam all the time. But if GOG and the Epic Games Store and other places increase their market share, that creates an incentive for Valve to win back our custom or to just fight harder to keep it, and that means we, the customer, get a better deal. So even though we like Gaben, we want Gabe to be under pressure. We want him to be a little bit fearful because that will keep him sharp and competitive, and that will be good for us. And that means that even if Valve don't go DRM free, they can still increase value by other means. Be that service, be that platform features, whatever it may be. But there is another angle to all this, that it's not sunshine and roses. So let's talk about how nothing's simple and unintended consequences. We should be clear what we're asking for, because sometimes somebody should have access removed, right? Even if they've purchased it. I mean, say it's a multiplayer game and somebody cheats, somebody breaks the community guidelines, breaks rules that by playing the game they said they agreed to. How do we handle that? I mean, in theory, it's pretty simple. What you should do is disentangle ownership of a game or license to a game from being allowed to partake in the online service, even if the game is an online-only game. And I think that is basically common sense. But if you were crafting legislation, you would need to write that thing goddamn specifically so that there are not any unintended consequences. And that brings everything back to the discourse that was going on with pirate software, right? Where if you say that all games have got to last forever, well, you could just say, yeah, build player-ran servers, make it possible, do it. And often it probably would be easy, but maybe if you're Pirate Software, maybe you're thinking about the server binaries, maybe you're going to be thinking about security implications, IP implications, all of those things. Perhaps to the stage where crafting effective legislation would be extremely hard. It'll essentially become a case of who do you want to enforce this? The market via rewarding companies who are doing things that people like, or legislation, which sometimes can be very effective or sometimes can be less effective. I mean, that games have an end-of-life plan is really good. I prefer that. I see that as better value, therefore I'm more likely to buy it, and it's a competitive edge for a developer who makes a game like that. And therefore transparency is important because it makes it clear that that is an axis of competition. I think what we all want is fairly simple: a market with informed consumers who reward features that they value, thus creating a natural incentive for developers to take the needs of those customers seriously. To take the example of end-of-life plans for a game, well, if it's done because of genuine competition and genuinely trying to add value, then it will probably be a good, well-thought-out feature, rather than the bare minimum done for the sake of compliance. All of this, though, brings me back to Steam. I did dangle the prospect of Steam maybe not complying with that law. So let's get into that. Steam's wording is fuzzy. The legislation specifies the word purchase, clearly saying that a reasonable person takes that to mean an unrestricted ownership interest in the digital good. Now, the reason why I said fuzzy is because Valve say you purchase a license to the product on Steam. Again, purchase. The amendment says that purchase is what a reasonable person would define as unrestricted access to the digital good, which of course is not the case here. It is restricted because if you get banned from Steam, or if Steam just somehow explodes, well, you won't have it. Now, it could be that Valve take a slightly different read, that for them they're saying, well, no, the digital good that you have unrestricted access to is this license. Maybe it's a little bit like a theme park ticket. Imagine a lifetime theme park ticket. That ticket is yours, right? It can't be taken away from you. But if you get yourself banned from the theme park, then the ticket that you own is rightly rendered useless. It's a bit funny then. Valve affirms what you have, but they leave the implication that you do not own games to the Steam subscriber agreement. I have to wonder if in the future Valve may have to say something like this: you purchase a license to play the game on Steam valid for the duration of your Steam account, or something similar to that. This would be great for consumers. People would know exactly what the deal is. They would not be surprised or confused. But obviously Valve would hate that. If you know anything about e-commerce, you know that the conversion rate of your store's checkout is the most important thing, and anything that could decrease that conversion rate is bad. Of course, that cuts both ways, and if you're GOG, well, you see it as a competitive advantage. One thing did call this into question recently. It was GOG delisting a bunch of games in September. That actually worried people a lot, and it led to this response from them. When we say we let you own your games, we meant that. No matter what happens, whether it's licensing issues, storefronts shutting down, or even a zombie apocalypse cutting off your internet, you'll still be able to play them thanks to our offline installers. We want to ensure your gaming legacy is always in your hands, not ours. So yeah, they're affirming that the thing you get on your hard drive, basically zip file with game installer, that's yours. You can install it even if there's no internet. Now, of course, you could still get banned from GOG. You can still do things that mean they are well within their rights to refuse your custom, to shut down your account, and maybe that means you won't be able to download something. But the key difference is, with Steam, everything's gone. With GOG, well, it's yours, because the thing they've sold you goes onto your computer, and you can do whatever the goddamn hell you want with it. And that is, I think, a competitive edge. We then approach an interesting future, one where a person with a decent internet connection, a NAS, and an installation of Jellyfin can feel damn good about themselves, not having to rely on the absolute nightmare of everything. But I'll tell you who's not feeling great about themselves. Paradox. They just held a press event that had no games. What it did have, though, was a message, and if you're thinking about a certain South Park gif, yeah, that one. You can learn about it next.